Hey, I want to talk to you a little bit about how you can have difficult conversations. The first step, of course, is to get somebody really mad at you. Then it's a whole lot easier to have a difficult conversation. But let's assume that you've already got somebody that's mad at you or somebody who's done something to make you mad. But at any rate, you've got to have that difficult conversation. We're going to use the acronym CLEAR, CLEAR, to describe just a kind of a pathway to follow. You'll customize it. You'll make it your own. But I find that these general principles will help you. The first is to confront. You are going to have that conversation. So kind of three ways to have a difficult or to confront would be to start first very generally, to say perhaps, hey, I've noticed some tension in our relationship. Are you feeling that? Or am I off base? But I think I feel this. You start very general with not a lot of specifics, which doesn't make them defensive, gives them the opportunity to say, yeah, I have. But sometimes they'll play that off and say, oh, no, everything's fine, no worries. So you may have to go to level 2, which is a bit more specific, saying something like, in this example, well, sometimes I feel like in meetings, that's where I feel the tension. Does that make sense? And they may say, no, I don't have any trouble with you in meetings. Or they may say, oh yeah, you know what, there is some tension there. If they say that there's no tension, but you know that there is, you might go one level deeper of specificity and say, well, in our last meeting, when I was sharing my idea, I really felt like you sort of very visibly rolled your eyes and sighed. And, so you give them a more specific example of what they've done. But you start generally because the more specific you get, the more potential for defensiveness there is. But I find when I have to work through all three tiers of confrontation, then at that point, almost everybody's willing to actually discuss the issue, okay? So confrontation is the C, or confront is the C of clear. The second letter, L, is for listen. Listen well. Ask for more. Tell me more about that. But you want to listen. As you're listening, remember this, it's going to be hard sometimes not to respond or to interrupt them. But the more you can learn about what they're feeling, the more you'll be able to respond wisely. When you listen, it's like your adversary in the confrontation or in this difficult conversation is actually showing you their battle strategy. They're revealing to you the arsenal that they're about to fire at you, but they're doing it in a way that's not combative, but they're just because you've said, I want to hear, and you're trying to listen well. Remember this, that listening does not mean that you give up the right to respond or share your opinion. So hold on to that. You can always tell them whatever you feel like you need to tell. But listening well honors them and diffuses the tension, I find. The third letter is E, and it stands for exchange. This is where you share what you felt. It's where you ask for clarification. It's where you ask questions, but there's generally a back and forth exchange as you begin to come a little bit closer to one another in finding a resolution. The third letter is A, which is apology or apologize. I look for ways that I can genuinely apologize. Almost every difficult conversation or confrontation comes about because the two of us miscommunicated. If I can identify where I genuinely could have done something better, then I will apologize for it. Just the simple act of acknowledging I was wrong diffuses things, and it takes help us take a giant step forward into being closer to one another in resolution. All right? You don't have to apologize. You don't want to apologize disingenuously. It just will not make any difference. They'll see right through it. But you can apologize for what you genuinely can apologize for. Okay? And then the third is to restore the relationship. And that is, you want to end this on a high note. I often ask, hey, is there anything else that we need to talk about? Or, hey, I really value you and I really want to work well with you and I really appreciate you being part of this team. Is there anything else that would be helpful right now? I don't want to leave here without us having anything unresolved. So making sure that you've restored the relationship, leaving them with affirmation for how you feel about them and the value they bring to the team or whatever context you're in, I think that's a good thing as well. So CLEAR is a good general pathway for having difficult conversations.